So maybe that'll just be back to like, nope, that'll never be like that for me, you know?
No, but yeah, but I mean, we'll keep going. We'll keep going through it for sure. But I mean, I was thinking maybe we'll finish book 2, and then for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7,
Yeah.
we'll try to pick
Take the
out
best
some
of,
of the
yeah,
best chapters.
you might be right. You might be right.
Well, the only thing is, I think we'll be here 5 years. At the rate I'm going.
Yeah, it's like I'm really enjoying this, though. I think part of it is that you have so much supplementary, information and stuff.
Well, yeah, and and the only way I can understand anything, and this is why I'm so plodding, is I go through it line by line as if it's a prose poem,
Right.
And I mean, because it's just, and it's surprising how much you gloss over by not doing that,
Yeah.
And then if you go over it again and again, then certain things come back. I mean, I'm going to try to do that today. I mean, this is really is just trying to explain Elijah and Salome and Logos and Eros, but and he doesn't have this in the Black Book, but I just think it's too important to just pass up because
Right.
I mean, I think when we get done here, we're going to have a really good idea about, and there's some aspects of it that are similar to the journey of body, soul, and spirit that Gerhard Dorn had. That this way without intention or purpose, is the animal way. It's the serpentine way. And it is the way. But what it also needs is there needs to be a witness to it. And that's what I'm going to talk about at the beginning is ruthless self-knowledge, which means this fact that we need to become objective witnesses. In other words, you objectify the personal and personify the objective is the only way to consciousness. And I think this is what logos means, really, is the witness to this and the understanding of the serpentine way. The serpentine way is the only way to get forward because it's life, and it will never leave the flesh. It will never leave the body. And it is the way.
So when I think of personifying the objective, I think of Hillman and, how he talks about personification.
Mm-hmm.
And, I try to do that when I remember. And I think that's really good. Now, for objectifying the subjective, I don't know really, I don't think I have a good feel for what the practice is there.
The thing is, if you don't objectify the subjective, you're unconscious. I mean, you are living in what Edward Edinger is. I'm going to talk about this in a second. What Edward Edinger says: "Who invented water?" And the answer is, I don't. I know who didn't invent it, and who's that? The fish. Until we realize.
Oh, I see. So in this case, this would almost be like in, like in some of the alchemical books, like where they have the alchemical drawings,
where the guy's sticking his head out of the globe.
Yeah. I mean, a number of the drawings, that where you literally, like, you look at your experiences and you place them within a context. That would be the objectification.
Well,
maybe I'm getting it wrong.
Well, everything that happens to us is not us. It is an experience, and as to be conscious, we need to be the witness of it. See, in other words, Eros is the arena, the battler in the arena, and Logos is the one who sits in the arena and watches itself.
So
And
Logos we know is the container, and Eros is that which kind of flows in and around the container. But yeah, I don't think
it's the form. Okay, go ahead. What
the
were you going to say?
form. No, it's like, I think, okay, and I think if I don't get it, that probably, this is going to be worthwhile doing some examples on.
Well, yes,
Identifying the
I'm
person.
going to give a couple of
Oh,
examples,
good. Okay.
but it's in addition to what Jung gives. But I mean, essentially, it is to be conscious means to be not the victim of what happens to us, but
Oh, in
to
other
be the
words, it's like
witness of it.
it's the witness. It's like,
Yes,
you're in a situation, and yet at the same time you can kind of back off and
yes,
look
you're
at
at
it
the
from the meta
immovable
view.
spot.
Right, right. Okay,
Right.
no, I do that. Okay, now I get it.
Yeah, I mean, in everything that happens to us, and
Right, right.
then,
Because you have to take that impersonal view. If you don't take the impersonal view,
yeah,
then you're just kind of a
well, then you're being swept along,
right, right,
and
right.
see what that was the next book I wanted to go into and maybe do the highlights of that one too, because it's
Mm.
1,400 pages long, but
Oh my gosh.
it's the seminars of the visions of Christiana Morgan, which are way better than Jung's visions. I
Oh
mean,
wow. Oh,
I'm
that
just
sounds
saying.
awesome.
Well, it is. It's the best book I've ever read
Oh my gosh.
because they're
So,
so rich. And
all right, I
she
have to
had
write
no
this
idea.
down. I'm going to, I say this, and yet recently I've been not particularly great about spending a lot of time my time reading. I've been trying to get a few things done around the house, and it's been taking so much time. Okay, what's this called?
Well, it's this visions seminars, which is the it's the visions of Christiana Morgan, and Jung goes through them through about 4 years. Just goes through them one by one, and I'll send
Oh, you have
a
a PDF
link.
for that?
Yeah, I have a PDF of
Awesome.
it.
Okay, that would be
You know,
awesome.
but anyway, I just thought that's why we might want to. We'll finish book 2 because it's the introductory to the science of visioning, and then we'll start for 3, 4, and through 7. We'll maybe look at some highlights of it. We can always go back, but otherwise, we're going to be here for years. At the rate we're going.
Right, right.
Which is I'm not. I'm just saying that.
No, I'm sure you have the best feel for this. It's just, oh my gosh, the
I
Black
don't
Book has
know.
just been one of my absolute favorites. It's just
Well,
been
yes,
like,
it will not stop, and we can always come back to any of them. But I'm just saying that we the thing what I was thinking of was maybe one period a week or a month that we do another book or something like that.
right, right. Oh, you're
Yeah.
right. Mixing it up, that's probably a good idea.
Just a little bit, to so we don't, burn out on it,
Right, right.
But here I'm going to put the link to the PDF here. But I'm just saying now. First of all, I'm learning a lot from the Black Book, and that I would never have known without the Black Books. And
Yeah.
so we need to keep doing that because it's so revelatory. In fact, every single one of these episodes has been a revelation to me.
Yeah,
And I just
totally
keep
agree.
seeing things that I've never seen before. I mean, never thought of before or never realized before, never hit me before. And I think that we're going to meet that today too, where we're just going to really go over Logos and Eros one more time. Because I just don't think that we really got it. I went through it again. I still don't know if we really got it, but it's so good that.
Oh, and in my mind, I had the really primitive one of, Logos is thinking and Eros is
Yeah.
emotional, which is like not it at all,
Well, yeah, because they have all four functions too. I mean,
Right,
each
right.
one, and so it's a little bit different. Hi, Jan and Dawn.
Yeah, I mean, when the description where, no, they all have all four elements, but one is the container and the other is
Yeah,
that which fills it, that made a huge difference in my understanding.
yeah. I think it's it might not be the best analogy as a container, as more of the form, which I think
Ah, right.
is the ordering of what we see into into understanding. See, the vessel normally. This is what kind of confuses me: is the vessel is normally feminine. So I think what we mean by form is we mean ordering the events and experiences that happen to us.
Well, that's really, that's even better because then it's like if I'm in my Jungian framework as much as I can accomplish it, then it's almost like Jung can have a logos form.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll try to go over that this time. We'll just spend one time more. And hi, everybody. We're just going to get started. I was just telling Gary that what we might want to do is we'll finish book 2, just plodding through like we are. But then for 3 through 7, we'll maybe pick a few highlights of, you know, to begin with. We can always go back, but then maybe at that point, maybe on the first period of each month or the last period of each month, we do a little bit from another book. And the one I was thinking of that is just closely related to this is the Visions Seminars of Christiana Morgan, which, as instructive as the Black books have been to me and to Gary too, is these have a rich quality. And I want to bring in one aspect of the Visions seminar that will explain this, the Eros and Logos, and also what they mean, what I think they mean. I'm not saying I know what they mean, but anyway, I just, these Young starts out in this thing about that these the images of Elijah and Salome and the serpent and the crater, the volcanic crater. That means where all these depths come up, and also the house, the abode where Logos and Eros reside. Which kind of gave me a sort of a rush of feeling about my own houses and my dreams. Well, this is the place where understanding and life itself reside. The life itself and the understanding of life itself reside in the abode. But anyway, I just wanted to introduce something really quickly about Jung says the portrayals of the unconscious thoughts. It's a personification of the unconscious thoughts of the objective psyche. Well, what does objective psyche mean? And this is what this whole thing is about. Is about Jung's confrontation with non-ego within himself, which is the other, that which is not ego, which is within me. And that's what he means by objective psyche. And that's what he means by consciousness. Consciousness is realizing that the psyche is not ego. That's what consciousness is. Let's just, I just wanted to mention a little bit about what Jung says about, Edinger said about the objective psyche, that it is ruthless self-knowledge. You know, at the Oracle of Delphi, they say, know thyself. They mean know the non-ego that's in you. You know, I mean, it not know your, the phenomenology of this individual, but the objective psyche, you know, and it's impossible to know anything unless there is a living other opposite to us. And Jung or Edinger uses the example of who invented water. And the person says, I'm not sure, but I didn't know who didn't invent it, the fish. You know, in other words, if you live in water, you can't discover water. You know, you have to be outside of the water to look at it and say, oh, that's what I'm living in, you know, and I'm here. That's not me. That's this non-ego. So it means to there has to be some living other for anything to be known. To perceive the full existence of the psyche, we must perceive it as an object, as an other. Although the ego perceives, it does not make, it does not create. The ego discovers, and it discovers by experiment. The same way that a scientist or an alchemist discovers. We don't create ourselves, we are created. And hi, Adam and Carlos. We're just going over what the objective psyche is here, just a little bit of an introduction. We discover, let's see, what has been created. We have not been made. We are. What we are is it is our responsibility to what we find in the objective psyche, but it's not us. The things that Jung's seeing here in these black books is not ego. His I-ness is to be responsible to what he finds there. And this is what he means by the objective psyche, and the ability to take an objective attitude towards these depths is indispensable to any significant consciousness. And this is really what Jungian or Jung means by his psychology, is this the consciousness of an objective psyche, which is not ego, and realizing it's there, and realizing our responsibility is to be to what we discover there, that we don't create, we discover, and then we need to respond to what we discover, you know. So I just wanted to read one little thing from that, what Jung says about that. Let's see right here. Let's see. Okay. Now he's talking about the philosopher's stone, you know, and he says, the stone is below thee as to obedience, above thee as to dominion, therefore from thee as to knowledge, about thee as to equals. Now that's an alchemical passage, is somewhat obscure, but nevertheless, the stone stands in an a psychic relationship to man. The adept expects obedience from it, but on the other hand, the stone exercises dominion over him, the psyche. Since the stone is a matter of knowledge or science, it springs from man, but it is outside him, in his surroundings, and he is among equals. The description fits the paradox of the situation itself, as its symbolism shows. It's easily overlooked and pushed aside. Indeed, it is in need of help, and it is in need of help and must be perceived, protected, and as it were, built up by the conscious mind. Now, this describes what Jung is doing in the Black Books. These images and visions that come up in him are in need of his help, must be perceived, protected, and as it were, built up by the conscious mind, just as if it did not exist at all and were called into being only through man's care and devotion. And as against this, we know from experience that it has long been there and is far older than the ego, and that it is the spiritus rector, the teacher or the guide of our fate. So anyway, that's just about the objective psyche and what Jung is doing here. And so I just wanted to, we'll just start on, just going through Logos and Eros one more time, and then we'll move on. Okay. The action is set in an earthly depth, the inner depth beneath the extremes of the bright space of consciousness or the field of psychic vision. Sinking corresponds to averting the mental gaze from outer things and focusing it on inner dark depths. Gazing at darkness to some extent, now this is an important word, to some extent, animates previously dark background. Gazing at darkness occurs without conscious expectation. The inanimate psychic background has an opportunity to let its contents appear undisturbed by conscious assumptions. Now, I just want to say that that was how Jung started this vision, and it is something that I have done, is to look, just look at darkness, or just concentrate on darkness and wait to see what appears, because it animates it. Your concentration on it, and we're going to get to that when we get to the crystal. The crystal is the symbol of conscious expectation and concentration. It is what the reason it appears in this vision is it's a key to Jung about how to get these visions to continue to come. Is through this concentration, just like the alchemist does on this flask that he looks into. He's animating a nothingness that's inside a glass flask by just concentrating on it. And what happens, to me, just in practical terms, is I see a flash of something, and Barbara Hanna says it always happens when there's a sudden drop. We just suddenly drop, and then this sort of an image comes forth to us. And he had a word to that, that it is it's not exactly photographic. It's but it is in my case, as anyway, if you done enough, if you just do practice a little bit, so the images can become not anything like photographic, but they're definitely all, you can feel that they're independent of you, and they're moving, and they interact just a little bit, not really a lot for me anyway, but just there's a little bit of interaction that, when it happens, it just makes me almost burst into tears and gratitude, that it happens. So anyway, he sees the two figures, the old sage and the young maiden, step in unexpectedly, and they are characteristic of what happens everywhere. I mean, there's Merlin and Vivian, and Simon Magus and Helena, and there's this old man and the sage occurs quite a bit. And the old man is the spiritual principle that could be defined as logos. The maiden is the unspiritual principle of feeling that could be described as eros. So now what these two, the first one is understanding, the second one is life itself. Okay, is life itself. And there's the aspect of the life itself, this inexhaustible joy of life invincible, which, if it happens without understanding, is lost to us. There are experiences in it, and I think experiences that are remembered are somewhat understanding. But if you can bring meaning to the experiences as well, that becomes your own personal myth. Then that's what they mean by consciousness. And I think it's not so much the outer experiences, but it's the inner experiences. It's not relating to what happens to you in three-dimensional space, but what happens to you in inner space that brings forth the myth. Because this figure that brings us the visions, brings us the dreams, isn't it interesting that they actually reflect what happens to us in the outer world? And they saw it far better than we did, and they respond, they give us their opinion of what it is we're up to, and their opinion of what it is we're up to is very foreign to us, because we're so confined in this upper world, and that we live in this world of. They're saying that's not your homeland up there. Your homeland is down here, and will you ever get it? I mean, the soul says to me, "Do you know what your life would be without me? Really? Do you know what it would be without me? I mean, you can live up here and, have all this fun and everything, but try living without me, and see how life is, I mean, that's I think the that that you can't live, that you need, that this inner aspect of ourselves is our life. We think our life is out here. No, it's this inner aspect, which, if it withdraws from us, all joy is lost in our life, because it's the holy man that Salome kills, because Young is too confined in that upper world. So she kills the great treasure, because she's subjugated by his own logos. I mean, that's really what it means. So I don't know if that registers with us at this point, or with anybody, but it's compelling if we can realize that this is our sickness, is that we are, this treasure hard to attain within us, we don't value very much, So, but when you would value it is when you were one of the most prestigious members of the psychiatric community, and you just wrote to the most powerful figure in that community, telling them that you don't want to have anything to do with them anymore. And then they cut you off from all that prestige and power that you had, and now you're left all alone. And everyone spurns you, and and will have nothing to do with you anymore because you're that uh, sorcerer from Kusnacht, who's is not at all dealing with psychological science. You're dealing with some weird magic that's has something to do with past ages, and that's when you might be motivated to do what Jung's doing here. So anyway, let's go into logos. We're just going to review it one more time. Logos is its descendant is nous, the intellect, but the intellect has done away with the commingling of feeling, intuition, and sensation. And in contrast, logos contains this commingling. It's not the product of such a blending of the four functions, or else it would be a more instinctive psychic activity. It masters the blend, okay? The four functions are the four fundamental activities of the soul, are subordinate to logos. And it's the independent principle of form. That means understanding. I think that's what it primarily means, understanding and meaning. Understanding means meaning, I think. Insight, foresight, legislation, and wisdom. That's what logos is. Yet it possesses all four functions. So it's very related to nature. It's very related to wholeness. It's not part, but it represents form. The old prophet is the form, or the ordering, I think is a better word. I mean, if we think form, then we're thinking too much. And Jung actually states here that's the vessel, but I think it means more the ordering of what occurs in the inner world. So the old prophet is a fitting allegory, since prophetic spirit unites in itself all these qualities. Okay, now that's logos. Eros is the independent principle. They're both independent principles that contains the commingling of all four fundamental activities of soul, which are thinking, sensation, thinking, feeling, intuition, and sensation, and masters them just as much as logos does, although its purpose is completely different. Not form giving, but form fulfilling. In other words, it really is life. It's the wine that's poured into the vessel. It's not the bed and direction of the stream, but the impetuous water flowing into it. And that was where I wanted to bring up this image of Joseph Campbell had, because he, I think, kind of describes this pretty good. It's in this image here. This is not the best. Let's see. It's not the best image of it, but let's see. I don't know. Wait, I'm doing something wrong here. Yeah, there we go. I'm got to go back to my Zoom. There we go. Okay. Photos. Okay, let's see this one here. Yeah. Okay. So now this is just this two birds. Okay. Now I've got to I got to read it, so I got to go. I got to undo this a second. But this is from Joseph Campbell. Now this kind of, to me, helps me understand logos and eros. When he was in India, there's this saintly guru that asked him, "Where are you between two thoughts?" And Campbell says, "Yes, that was a very great man. His name was Sri Krishnamanam, not the uh, uh, Krishna Menon of Nehru's entourage, but that was his name. And his holy name, his saint name, was Atmananda, the rapture of the soul. And I faced him. I was invited up to his attic, and he sat just as we're now facing each other. The first thing he's asked me was, "Have you a question?" And he says, uh, he says, I had the good fortune to ask him the question that had been his first question to his guru. So we had a very good conversation. My question was, since all is Brahman, and since all is a manifestation of that divine mystery, no matter how we judge it ethically, or no matter how we judge it in terms of prudence and things of that sort, is it still the divine? So should we say no to stupidity, to ignorance, to brutality, and to war, and to everything else that the world gives? And he says, for you and me, this is the only way. It might be not the way for others, but it's the way for us. And Campbell says, and ever since then, I've been confirmed that affirmation, that total affirmation of the life, of the way life is, that you say yes to life. And he gave this example that there's two aspects to this. One is your judgment in the field of action, and the other is your judgment as a metaphysical observer. Now, the judgment in the field of action is Eros, and the judgment as a metaphysical observer is Logos. He says, that's the way life is. You can't say that there shouldn't be poisonous serpents, but in a field of action, if you see a poisonous serpent about to bite somebody, you kill it. That's not saying no to the serpent, that there shouldn't be any poisonous serpents. That's saying no to the situation of the serpent biting our friend. This is the whole trick. It's a duality in the way of living. There's this wonderful verse in the Rig Veda that has stood me in as a model for this. It says, on the tree, that's the tree of life, the tree of your own life, there are two birds, fast friends. They're Logos and Eros. One eats the fruit of that tree and enjoys the smell of it and the taste of it and the texture of it. And the other, not eating, watches. Now, the one eating the fruit of the tree is killing a fruit. And when people go in for meditation, very often they can no longer participate in this killing of the fruit that life is. Life lives on life. That's what it's all about. Anyway, that's sort of it's sort of this attitude that you fully participate in life is Eros. And then Logos is this metaphysical observer of it. So there's two judges. One is in the arena acting, and the other one who sits in the stands and watches the figure in the arena. That's Logos, Eros. We have two centers of awareness. One is Eros, one is Logos. And Eros is the desire, longing, force, exuberance, pleasure, and suffering, where Logos is understanding, insight, foresight, legislation, and wisdom, and they absolutely need each other. One can't exist without the other. That's what makes us human. Okay, you can't have one without the other. Logos is ordering and insistence. Eros is dissolution and movement. So Logos is ordering and insistence, but what would it be like without dissolution and movement? It'd be static. Nothing would happen. But for Eros to live without ordering and insistence is really to be not human. The logos aspect, this meaning of understanding, adds to this pleasure in being alive a level that makes us human, you know, uh, which the logos does, which is this metaphysical observer, you know, the bird that watches, the bird that eats the fruit, you know. And it also, that kind of reminds me of the fact that, you know, when in the peregrinations of this alchemist, they go all the way up to the seventh heaven, but then they come back down to the earth. And Hermes says, because our strength is only perfected. We can go up to the seventh heaven, but that's albedo. It's total whiteness. It's non-being. We need to return to the blood, to the body. Because Eros, and Jung says that later, can never separate itself from the body. So this puzzle between these three, body and spirit, and the middle realm of soul, is also a puzzle in alchemy too. How those three interrelate. You know, the bird that eats the fruit, and then the metaphysical observer of logos, you know, on that, which is the ordering and insistence. So Elijah is this logos figure, and Salome is the imperfect Eros in Jung, because it's subjugated to Elijah, so she's blind, and she killed the Holy One, who is also Elijah. Elijah is the Messiah will not come until Elijah comes. And so the disciples ask, well, wasn't Elijah supposed to come here if you're really the Messiah? He says, I tell you that Elijah has come. You know, and that's John the Baptist. You know, so Elijah and John the Baptist are the same person. Salome kills John the Baptist. And the reason she kills him is not because of herself, but because Eros has been subjugated to logos in Jung. So his living thing within him, the living new thing within him, the announcer of the new God within Jung, was killed by Eros, because she's blind and she's imperfect, you know, and she's imperfect and blind because Jung's logos is out of control. The ordering insistence is far out of balance within him. It's way too in control, and he needs to let Eros be an independent principle within himself before he can be conscious. You know, up until that point, he's unconscious in logos. He's unconscious in the ordering and insistent world, and what he's unconscious of is that the life-giving, life-producing aspect of himself, which he only can encounter in the depths. He can't encounter this in the outer world. Nothing there will teach him this. Nothing there will teach us this. You know, I mean, this is our way too, you know, is that somehow we need to be the equal partners of this, the contents of our own unconscious. And that's our task. That's our responsibility as the ego is. And this is what really is consciousness is. If we want to know what consciousness is, it is that ego realizes that within itself, it has another consciousness that it was heretofore unaware of. And that's the psyche, the magic of this world of the images, which are far more wise than ego can ever imagine, far more wise than any. You know, there are no words or systems of thought that can contain this, you know. And that's really what the symbol is the since this symbol is beyond words, it is so profound, the tongue cannot soil it, you know, is what the Hindus say. That we need a symbol, a wordless thing to represent that profound thing. It's the new God that the announcer of the new God is going to herald his presence coming, you know. So anyway, that kind of describes these two fundamental psychic powers that form a pair of opposites, each totally requiring the other. And the old prophet expresses persistence. You know, he starts out with this as biblical Elijah, and he transforms into this uh, pagan of Hellenistic character in Philemon. But with the young maiden denotes movement. Figures that don't belong to a person, but have a spiritual, mythical content of the world's peoples that we've possessed since time immemorial. And so, you know, we all have the wise old sage within us, and we all have this young, the figure of the beautiful figure of Salome, who represents life invincible, just this principle of being alive, and and the wonder of it, and the wonder of being in a body too. Let's not forget that our bodies are a great treasure to us, you know. And I think, you know, Adam and Gary have both demonstrated that to us, you know. By the way, Adam or Gary, do you have anything going on today or not?
I didn't prepare anything. How about you, Gary? Yeah.
All right.
Oh, no, nothing today.
Okay. All right. Well, then at around, close to 11, we're just going to, again, everybody just share anything they want to share. They can talk about this or they can talk about anything, you know. So I'll just keep an eye on the time here. And by the way, when we're done with this, we'll move on. You know, I just thought that last time I just wanted to go over Logos and Eros one more time, because I think it's just I've never seen it presented this way before, you know, and so it was a revelation to me. I don't know what you guys think, but so anyway, then Jung goes on to this one paragraph that's just so beautiful. You just want to. He talks about the secret power. Okay. There's a secret power within us. You know, I mean, he's sort of just trying to wrap his head around. Like, say it was you, and you had this. Were gazing at the darkness and concentrating and animating it, and suddenly you discovered yourself leaning against a rock, and you see a house, and here comes an old man and a beautiful woman, you know, and then you have this dialogue with them. So he's talking about the secret power of the inner world. This was kind of, I mean, he says this vision is unlike any other he ever had, you know. I mean, this was one of the first one, I would say, that was the mystery play within him. And he talks about the secret power. Such primordial images have a secret power that works as much as human reason on the soul. Whenever they appear, they stir something linked with the mysterious, the long gone, and the heavy with foreboding. A string sounds whose vibration reverberates in every man's breast. These primordial images dwell in all of us as the property of all mankind. And their secret's power is like a spell, like magic, and causes elevation. It lifts us as much as seduction, as it seduces us. So it both lifts us, and it is what Schopenhauer says that if you want the blossom of spring and the fruit of the harvest all at the same time, this is the seductive aspect of it. If you really experience it, it's unforgettable. You know, the secret powers like a spell, like magic, and causes elevation as much as seduction. And this is characteristic of the primordial images that take hold of a human being. That means us, where we are utterly human, and the power seizes us as if a bustling throng were pushing us. This happens even if individual understanding and feeling rise up against us. And what is the power of the individual against the voice of the whole people within him? Well, not everyone is as fortunate as Jung to have these visions, but I think we can also experience these in a very well amplified dream, that we, draw, color, enact in the outer world, and do a ritual of thanks for, and also, I don't think it hurts to whatever inner figure you have to do a prayer of devotion to that figure, and it within, just to establish this this fact of that there is a numinous sacred quality to this that is my life, and it's my inner life, and I need to honor it like I honor nothing else, Anyway, that we're entranced, possessed, and consumed. And Jung is going to talk about the two things that really did that to him, and that was the serpent and Salome. First, the serpent signified everything dangerous and bad, nocturnal and uncanny, but it also represents both Logos and Eros. They both are nocturnal and uncanny, but the serpent works in the dark and unrecognized principles of the unconscious spirit. This serpent aspect, which is magical. I mean, that's, I think, the thing that serpent really possesses. When you see it, you immediately are overcome by the nocturnal and the uncanny. And that's the magical spell a serpent casts. That probably are very few other creatures do that, because it's not actually one of disgust usually, like you might do with a spider or something that was, but it has a different quality, It's just the uncanniness of it did you ever get over the fact of the movements and the character of the snake, with no limbs? The house represents the fixed abode, which indicates that Logos and Eros have permanent residence in us. Now, just to go over again, Salome is the daughter of Elijah, expresses she's not, in Jung's personally, she is subordinate to, makes Eros subordinate to Logos. And the general case is that those two opposed principles, one couldn't arise from the other. So Salome is not yet, anyway, a correct embodiment of Eros. And so Jung's task, and the reason he's been given this image, is to heal the wounded anima, or the wounded Eros within him. And she's an incorrect figure for Eros because she's blind, because Eros is not blind. She regulates just as well as Logos does all four fundamental activities of the soul. Her blindness indicates her incompleteness and lack of an essential quality. Well, what is that essential quality that she lacks? Because of this lack, she depends on the Father. Kind of think it's probably has something to do with the feeling function in Jung. Is this essential quality that she lacked. since he was a thinking person. Then he talks about the indistinct glittering walls of the hall, just talking about the reality of this image that he experienced. Again, in the black books, what we get to see is the science of visioning. And so Jung's trying to discuss, I saw that, what did it mean? I wonder what it is. And he says it points to something still unrecognized, yet valuable, that should awaken his curiosity and attract his attention. And it implies that that he needs to have a creative involvement with this world. He needs to be woven ever deeper into its images, so that an even greater animation of the dark background becomes possible. That was the meaning of this glittering wall that he didn't understand. And now, the fact that this thing was showing him something yet unrecognized, yet valuable, that should awaken curiosity and attract attention. Attract attention, that means this ego needs to be quiet and watched if anything dramatic is going to happen, So this enhanced attention gave rise to the image of the object that expresses the very nature of concentration, the image of the crystal, and which is used everywhere for my. I went to see Michael Harner, and he is a shaman, does shaman seminars, and he had crystals, they were quartz crystals. He says, don't ever point this at anybody. Because he believed that they had power, because they possessed concentration. They were kind of like voodoo dolls, if you take a doll and you stick pins in it, the doll represents your enemy and you stick pins in it, it's kind of has a sympathetic magic, these, and, you don't laugh at these things. And this is why, Jeffrey Raff said, don't ever have an active imagination with a living person, because you might inadvertently injure that person, and I can't imagine he meant anything other than that they're, they have access to the depths too, and what we do there might resonate over here, and don't do it, it's just not. And he also didn't recommend having active imagination with the dead. And the reason he didn't do that, this was his own opinion, that it would bring death into the room with you, and you that's dangerous to you, and you shouldn't do that either.
Hey, Craig.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a question in the chat.
Sure.
From Dawn.
Yeah.
She says, I noticed you just compared Eros to the anima. So for the woman, does that comparison remain true, or does it switch with, yes, I'm confused, would a woman's animus be compared to the logos principle or to the Eros principle as with man?
Well, now, women and men, just as male and female, who were this way by accident, just biologically, to produce young, or whatever. They have equal amounts of anima and animus, and they have, certainly we all have equal amounts of logos and eros. The only difference between a male biological specimen of the human species and a female specimen of the human species is that the female specimen of the human species is more conscious of her earthy qualities, her closeness to the earth, her role as the the life bearer. You know, she is closer to Eros, to life itself, and to the soul aspect of life, which is the earth. You know, she's in that she's closer to the middle realm than the male aspect. The male aspect is farther removed, so it's more conscious of the ordering and insistence aspect, and it's also more conscious of that animus. You know, animus thinking, logos, and then over here you got eros feeling, anima. They're not exactly the same thing, but they what was I think it's was Hillman says that that there is that eros is, and anima are closer to feeling than logos and the animus are. You know, so we both got the same amounts, but one of us, and it doesn't have to always be the case in every specimen of the female biological or the male biological, at least the way that they were physically born. I don't want to go into any of this ideologically, okay? But I'm just saying that we tend to be more conscious. Some tend to be more conscious of one aspect, and some tend to be more unconscious the other, more conscious of the other aspect, and they're more unconscious of the opposite. You know, so I, as a one who was born a male and not by choice but by accident of birth, you know, am very unconscious of the feminine within me, and am very unconscious, or more unconscious of the life-giving aspects of myself than I am of the ordering aspect of myself. Now, that's not true. I think that's less true of Adam. I mean, Adam, you seem to be a little more closer to that than I am. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, you know, maybe one way to approach this too, because, you know, this is not to get too off topic, but I think a lot of us have been raised in like environments where we think of gender as a sort of a binary thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, male or female. So maybe a way to approach this is, you know, and it's not necessarily easy, but for each of us to try to become aware within themselves as to these dynamics, because it's probably rather unique for individuals. And for some people who have been consistently marginalized and sidelined by this like dominant way of perceiving gender, you know, it could feel kind of isolating to
Yes.
have generalizations be made about exactly how these things work. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why you're talking to one of the most naive people in the world. So,
yeah,
you know, I'm not one to come to for instructions on this. But I'm also, my naivete, you know, is I know that I'm very unconscious of things. At least I know that I'm fumbly at it, you know. So, but it is very important. But anyway, I would say I noticed I did. I think Salome represents also Jung's anima, but I think she also represents the principle of Eros. But I don't think that, I think those are two different things, but they're closely related. She's also related to the feeling function, which is his unconscious function, you know, which is the bridge to the, so for me, you know, an intuitive person, you know, my bridge to the inner world is the feminine, because I was accidentally born male, and I'm not very conscious of the feminine. So I'm more conscious of being born actually a male and more familiar with hanging around with guys, you know, than I did when I was younger, you know, in that kind of world. And very, so the world of the woman is very mysterious to me, you know, and so I'm more unconscious of it. So that's where the inner world's opening is into me, you know, is through my inferior function and the fact and the anima as a bridge. And so I would say that that they're looking for the chinks. They're looking for the part of us that's most unconscious. So regardless of what you are on the spectrum of gender, there is an aspect of you that you're more conscious of and an aspect of you that you're more unconscious of. And the more unconscious aspect of yourself is probably the door which the inner world will use to send us dreams and things, and is also complementary to that which within us which we lack. See, if me, I lack a lot. I mean, I lack the feeling function. I lack the feminine. I lack the sensate world. You know, um, these are all great lacks in my psyche, and I will never be whole until I integrate and incorporate these aspects into myself, and bring them into the middle realm of soul. Really bring them into the philosopher's stone and create little symbols that will bring my center the center of gravity of my awareness closer to the middle plane where they are, so that we almost touch. And you do that through this dialogue with that within us which we lack. Now, in Jung's case, Salome is blind because his inferior function is feeling. And if you don't believe that, ask Sigmund Freud's daughter, or Jung's best friend, Albert Horry. They both described him as an asocial monster. I mean, he was just all, coming in at you like a freight train coming down the tracks at 90 miles an hour. What does this mean? I mean, he was not very, first asking, how are you feeling today? Did you have a nice day? I mean, one of my biggest shocks to the world of India was who are supposedly the real feeling function people of the world, is I sit down on a couch after having a dinner with an Indian couple, and I'm sitting next to the mother, and she sits real close to me and takes my hand in hers, and she looks at me and says, "Craig, have you ever been in love?" I never met her before, and that's her first question to me. So anyway, it's that's within me which I lack, and so that's what Jung is being presented with, here. So and this is something we all need to do. This is, Jung's trying to be honest about it, but I mean, we need to be honest about it too, So anyway, in the crystal, the image of Eve appears first, together with the images of the tree and the serpent, and it refers to temptation, Eros. How is Jung ever going to get out of his logos? Through temptation, through being disobedient to the ruling principle. The serpent and Eve are going to offer him this very tempting fruit, and it's through sinning against the ruling principle that his center of gravity is going to move to the middle plane, So that's why Salome is this dancer, this very tempting, beautiful dancer. She's temptation, and she's the sin against the ruling principle, and she's also because Jung has already needs to propitiate Eros within him. She has murdered the announcer of the new God within him, who is also the prophet. Now, who is also the announcer of the new God. So she murders him, but he's still alive, and he's her father. That's pretty interesting. So so after he is tempted, and it brings about a further movement towards the side of Eros, he suddenly sees the blue-black sea and the red sail on the blue black sea, which is Odysseus, the adventures of the Odyssey. So movement towards the sides of Eros um, is a fitting image. It's an invitation to adventurousness in Jung, in the inner world. A door opens to a new opportunity to free the gaze from the confinement in which it is held fast. There's all kinds of doors down here. Open one of them, and you may find out why you are just coming to me with your complaints. She says, you sound like a child complaining to its mother. I am not your mother. Open one of these doors. Find out for yourself. So then this vision opens onto a sunny garden whose red blooming trees represent a development of erotic feeling, whose wells mean a steady source. The cool water of the well, which does not inebriate, indicates logos. Salome later speaks of the deep wells of the prophet. So the deep wells of the prophet among the red blooming trees of erotic feeling. The deep wells of the prophet are among the red blooming trees of erotic feeling. And they suggest that the development of Eros also means a new source of knowledge. The deep wells of the prophet exist among the red blooming trees of erotic feeling. That's an image to Jung. It's a very powerful image. And at that point, Elijah begins to speak. So the Logos undoubtedly had the upper hand here because Elijah says that his daughter and him have always been one. But Logos and Eros are not one, but two. And Logos has blinded and subjugated Eros in Jung. So the necessity now arises in Jung to free Eros from the clutches of Logos so the former will regain its vision. And therefore, this is why Salome turns to Jung, because Eros is in need of ego's help, And Jung, this is why Jung has apparently been enabled to behold this image for precisely this reason, is that the subjugation of Eros through Logos explains not only the blindness of Eros, but also the strange fact that Eros is represented by a not so pleasing figure, someone who murders. She brings to mind not only the murder of the Holy One, but that she's licentious. Though Salome is Elijah's daughter, his subjugation has made her blind, so she murders the divine aspect of Elijah, the announcer of the new God. And Elijah, and of course John the Baptist are the announcing of the new God within Elijah has been murdered. So the principle always is the principle of Eros has the dignity of independence, and if this independence is taken away, it assumes a bad form. Psychic activity that is deprived of development through repression becomes something, a bad habit. It becomes a neurosis, really. And so either open or secret vices take the place of well-formed activity and give rise to the disunity of the personality. Well, anyway, we'll find out later that Jung, the way he helps out, or how the way that Salome regains her vision is that she tells him that that their mutual mother, is Mary. you know, and so they're brother and sister. But he's also the Christ. Okay. Now he's not the child Christ. He's the grown Christ. Now this is something that we all are and don't know it. You know, that we all possess this aspect within us that is we are all our own redeemer. Okay, let's put it that way. That's a little better than saying we're the Christ. That in alchemy, we are to redeem the inner world, not the other way around. You know, we need to what he describes at the beginning, that we need to rescue these images that are in need of our help, you know, and bring them up to consciousness and have this relationship with them. And it is and this is, I don't know how many times we have to go over this, but unless we recognize that there is this, the most valuable part within us is not us, but yet it is alive and it wants to have a dialogue with us, we're unconscious, according to this to the Oracle of Delphi, according to the Rig Veda, according to alchemy. All of these places who went into these dark places know that real consciousness, real wholeness, is to know. Now here's the interesting thing, and maybe we can kind of close with this. But I guess what happens is Mary. Well, he realizes he's the Christ. He suddenly gets this face of Ion. What's a lion face? His arms are suspended like this. The serpent winds up him and constricts him, and blood starts to come from him. So, and meanwhile, at that point, Salome regains her sight. So basically, now Eros is no longer subjugated by Logos. And I think that what happened was he assumed the animal face, no longer has that abstract thinker face, and the serpent, dominates him, winds itself around him and squeezes him until he bleeds. And at that point, Logos no longer has subjugated Salome. She regains her sight. She's no longer blind. So I mean, I think that was what Jung's that when he saw that it was just like a dream. There's a necessity. Parsifal, how are you going to heal the wounded king? Jung, how are you going to heal the blindness of Salome? And he has to do that through I think it's interesting after these images. If you look at photos of Jung before 1913, and you look at photos of Jung after 1913, just look into his eyes. And what really happened, I think, is that you'll see a softening, and I think this really is what it meant for Logos no longer to subjugate Eros, and for it to regain its sight. And I think all of us who say, are living too much in the what Eros offers Logos is a softening, a lunar light, not the harsh light of the spirit, but a more soft light of the soul, the middle realm, and this is really more of a living light. You know, if the solar light dominates, it desiccates, dries up. You know, the solar light needs to to assist indirectly. You know, and I wanted to mention one other thing. I don't know if I can get into it. We'll move on in the black books next time from this episode. But the aspect of logos and its ordering is not conscious intention. Eros needs to lead without purpose or intention. This is the way. This is the serpentine path that we lead. In other words, our way forward is without purpose and intention in the inner world, and probably to some extent if you're a Taoist in the outer world. Logos does not add intention. It adds understanding and meaning and ordering. You know, in other words, it takes all these kaleidoscopic images and tries to say, this goes here, this goes here. See, it forms a quaternity. This complements this complements that, you know, and it's ordered for, you know, and but it's not, all it's doing is ordering something that's already happened. It's not directing the path. Well, he says here that to some extent it is the dried bed, but I don't really think that's exactly a good analogy, but I could be wrong. I mean, I was thinking both the vessel of the wine and the directed stream bed are, I don't think anyone knows where the inner world leads. I mean, that's what, you know, Sir Gawain said when he took the path where there was no path. You can't follow anyone else's footsteps. Where it all leads, not even God knows, you know. So Logos doesn't know either where it's going to go. But what it can do is when you come upon a surprising, unexpected vision, it can say, you know, what does that mean? You know, and then it tries to answer the question. Well, anyway, next time we'll move on to the black books. And I thought, well, I was talking with Gary, maybe we'll finish book 2, and then we'll do some highlights of books 3 through 7. It's just too long. It'll take us years to get through it at the pace we're going. But I don't know of any other pace to handle this. But to take each one very slowly and digest it very slowly. But and of course, if anybody has any suggestions about chapters they want to read, we can do that. But I thought maybe one day a month we could discuss another book. And the one that I was thinking is either there's 2 possibles. One was the Visions of Christiana Morgan, which I think I put. Here's a link to the PDF of that. It's 1,400 pages long, and again, we can take just highlights of that one. But one that he mentions there that was one of the most beautiful ones I ever saw was this woman is standing by the stream, and all these bodies are flowing as in a river past her. And every once in a while, they don't seem to know what they're doing. They're just flowing in the river. But every once in a while, one sees the people on the banks and reaches their hand out. And for those, the people on the bank help them out. And then they take them and they show them a star. Now that was her vision, you know, which kind of represents the fact that we realize that this that there is this center within us that is not ego and is far wiser than and yet it was born with us and it will die with us. So are we going to have a relationship with that within us or not? You know, that's the question. But anyway, I'm just going to turn it over now to everybody. And Gary, what words of wisdom do you have for us today?
Well, okay, so, I guess one of the things that that hits me is that after the Red Book and the Black Books, Jung really got into alchemy. I think that was the historical part. And what actually triggered his getting into alchemy was he read the translation of The Secret of the Golden Flower, and realized that this was talking about a deep alchemical change. But The Secret of the Golden Flower, so I think that came from the 8th century BC, and it wasn't a book back then, but it was it was an oral thing that was just passed down. And then I think if you look at the various ways it's practiced and probably interpretations now, there's probably like 10 or 12 different interpretations of it. But the interesting thing about this is that Jung, he wasn't interested in the meditation aspect. He thought that was, too Eastern. And yet, I think, if you look at how much meditation is a part of our society now, I think you could say, oh no, the meditative part of this is actually quite interesting. So I've been practicing this and some variants on this, and I'm going to put in the chat, a link, and this is from the site medium.com. But I found this to be a really interesting meditation with, some interesting effects. And because The Secret of the Golden Flower was this was the book that, triggered Jung's whole journey into alchemy. I think this is well worth exploring. And I've been certainly finding it to be quite interesting.
Well, that is one thing that we might want to even start with is Jung's commentary on The Secret of the Golden Flower. And also we don't have to read I think that we also might want to read The Secret of the Golden Flower itself, because it's a beautiful, beautiful book. I mean, it's just absolutely from another world. I mean, that was why Jung was so, he just gave up what he was doing in the Red Book, because he realized, well, he was always trying to find historical analogies to what he was doing, because it was so, has anybody else done this? Yes, they have. And that's how he got into, and, of course, he'd had, these premonition, these predictive dreams, that he was trapped in the 16th century with a bunch of alchemical books. And he actually opened one and looked at it. And he later found the book with the same page in it, So, yeah, that is a very interesting thing. Maybe we should start out with that commentary. It's not real short, but anyway, this is a very interesting Breathing in the Light, a complete modern tutorial for the ancient meditation technique of The Secret of the Golden Flower, a Chinese book of life. And again, what alchemy really is all about, and is that we become the redeemer, or the savior. The ego is the one who rescues this non-ego wisdom within us and brings it up into consciousness, into awareness, and then becomes its equal partner here, through and it's so hard to do. I mean, anybody that does this, I mean, at least we are what Jeffrey Rafts says, the ones with wings just fly up to it anytime they want. Other ones with ladders are a little more adept. They can do it step by step. But most of us are, all we got is a rope. And it's not hanging from anything, And where do we hang it from? And even if we did hang it from something, you got to do it hand over hand. It's not easy, But anyway, it is, to me, well, the reason that was why Young gave up the Red Book. In fact, at that point, too, he tried to do a Red Book in stone at Bollingen. He realized that he needed to. This was going to be his Eros. He now was not going to think on paper anymore. He was going to think in stone, and he was going to go to a place where there was no telephones, no anything, and this was going to be his where he learned to be a human being for the first time, and Barbara Hanna used to help him with his books, and he said that he couldn't ever write properly unless he'd been at Bollingen for 7 days, and after he was there for 7 days, then he would start writing a book. And she said, this book starts out like you hadn't been at Bollingen for 7 days yet. And he says, how did you notice that? And it was true. Well, anyway, yes, why don't we look at that? We'll look at The Secret of the Golden Flower and see about reading that maybe like in this third week in December or something like that. Adam, what do you have to, anything you want to talk about, Adam, about what are you doing? Are you having any issues with anything, or?
Well, and, I was just thinking as far as what a lot of what we're talking about here, and even what you were just saying about what Jung was trying to do, even by working with stone, perhaps, is like integrating this stuff into our everyday lives in a real concrete way. Because, I mean, I think for me, a lot of what we talk about, and also studying, what Jung did, is there's kind of a beautiful, metaphorical, poetic aspect to it, and I think for me, at least, it's inspiring. But at least I would say in my personal life, it's like it needs to go way beyond that. There's like something very experiential where I can have images, but what do I actually do to live? Like they're not really two different things, but I'm not sure. We had been sort of doing some practices before, which to sort of help us all maybe get in touch with ourselves a little bit. But I feel like it needs to even go beyond that, where we're talking about all these concepts and stuff, but it's like an open question. How do you actually integrate that into your daily life? And I have specific situations, related to that, which I won't necessarily get into, but that could be maybe a discussion at some point,
Yeah, if maybe give us not just you, but I mean just give us maybe some specifics in the email or something that kind of flesh that out. But it is a real longing and a lack in our groping around is how do we live this ourselves? I mean, the only thing I know to do, is to record every single dream, every single weird hypnagogic image I have, and then, to in really a alchemical meditation, you know, in a very devoted, humble way to go without conscious intention and either discuss these dreams or to just wait for something to happen. And I really was telling Gary too that, you know, how real is this? How unreal is this? You know, all I know is if I go there and everything that I brought up earlier is gone, I grieve deeply in that loss, you know. So it's really rescuing these. Now, as far as living in the, as far as, and now you're getting above my pay grade on the, okay, and here's a great, where I'm not useful at all. I'm very useless, you know, is, you know, to me, this is really an inner religious experience, you know, and yet I'm a deep introvert, you know, I'm deeply introverted. So this is not going to speak to anyone who's extroverted or who or maybe needs to extrovert, even though they are an introvert. So in that case, I'm you know, we need to hear what the longing for extroversion is with people. You know, what is it that's lacking in the outer world in us?
Yeah.
Yes. And so and does it translate to what's lacking in the inner world or not? You know, I mean, what you know, Robert Johnson would always do is, it wasn't enough to do this inner work. Then you had to have an outer world ritual to and unite it with the world outside. You know, go look at the bark of 10 different trees.
Yeah.
And, you know, you go do that, and then, and you say, this, my dream is related to going and looking at the bark of 10 different trees, you know. And now that is, again, a sort of a mysterious Taoist type thing to do and doesn't solve a lot of problems. But
and I think maybe, yeah, and I don't want to dominate here, but
No, go ahead.
Carl had some interesting things to say in the chat.
Yeah.
I guess I would, you know, without necessarily reading it, because he could express it if he wants to. I feel like there needs to be an integration in the sense that, you know, yes, there's this inner process of maybe wholeness, psychic wholeness, which is developing, you know, as Carl said, like we get an inspiration from something deep within us. But I think maybe I'm wrong about this, but, you know, if I look out at the world and I see just how dysfunctional the things that we're experiencing as like humanity with respect to like what's happening on the earth and the destruction that we're causing and things like that, I think potentially it's not hard to make a connection between an inner process which develops a kind of a sense of wholeness and actually doing something in the outside world which could make things better. Because I think that the two things need to happen together, or maybe we're just sort of suspended in the land of fantasy, you know. I think
Could you give some
Younghead
examples of the Native American approach to this might be that you've experienced, or
you know, from what I'm studying, because I'm not Native American myself, all of, you know, the spiritual stuff, if you want to put it that way, was very integrated to just everyday life and survival, you know. So in many cases, these were hunter-gatherer societies, and, you know, a man, for example, had to go and hunt, say, buffalo, you know, in order to live, which was a very difficult, scary thing to do, you know. So it wasn't abstract. You know, a relationship with the spiritual world had everything to do with survival, because it was like a relationship with what is your food going to be. So I think maybe that's a disconnection, perhaps, that in this culture that we have, because, you know, all this dreaming and all this inner work, how is that related to like the food that I need to get? Well, you know, I can just go to the, you know, to the market and buy something, you know, or I work, you know, and but somehow for me, all these things have to come together and actually be a part of our daily life, or else we have like dreams over here and then what do we do like for 80% of the rest of our lives, you know? That's just my perspective. It'd be interesting to hear how other people feel like this stuff is integrated. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that very much. Is how does this train? I think I'm just as an introvert, I'd like to hear from some extroverts. What do you think, Kevin? Do you have any comments on anything? You're a little more extroverted than me.
I have so many, but I'm gonna try to keep it short. I think this how do you say it? Just in the Jungian view, you know, there is a necessary split of life to create ego. So because of this necessary split of wholeness, we will develop a world which is how do you say this? That leans more towards the other side than the other side. So it's gonna be a distortion of wholeness, because it's a necessary part to become conscious. And if we do come to a place where we become whole again, what happens is that we become unconscious again. So that's also dangerous. And in terms of Adam says about incorporating into reality, I think most people don't realize how to circumambulate the spectrum of experiences. What I mean by that is that you have thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. And most people lean towards different of this. But if people can circumambulate this different type of experiences, not only how we relate to the external world, but how we also relate to our inner life. So, you know, whether you do it experience, thinking, feeling, and so on. Okay, one aspect of it. The third aspect is the concept of, and we're using the word concept, unitary reality. There is no division between internal and external life for a person that is whole. This division between internal and external life comes from a person that is not whole, mostly. Because a person that is whole don't talk about this division. They talk about a wholeness which is, you know, somewhat they are all interrelated, and they might do something good in the outer world. Some may just meditate in a room and they think it's fine. And they don't see a division in that, because they have reached a certain point when they realize that the external, internal it's a Maya, if I'd like to. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say.
Yeah. Let's see. Does either did JC, Dawn, Visitor, or Carlos have anything? Or we could have Carl. Maybe you could explain your. Oh, you got your hand up, I think. Is that your hand up? Is that the universal symbol for I have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey,
Okay, I didn't see that.
so I've been deal with the same things Adam was saying, and I had a dream. I feel like, my anima was distant for a long time until I started to stand up for, what my soul was asking of me to the public. And then she had a dream where she returned, and, she still wasn't vibrant, but she was back. And and whatnot. And it had another dream. I think I told you about the books where I was talking to an anima figure on the shore, and they flew over the ocean on the books. And I was upset at her that I wouldn't see her until October 19th. And I had been trying to kind of fit in, you know, and as I realized as I was trying to fit in, well, these people don't have anything that they're not talking about at this church. This is a dead religion to me, you know. I feel like I'm being choked. So, you know, my guts would be in knots for, you know, days. And just I just heard somebody speak on October 19th, and something kind of been building in me. And at that point I realized, you know, I really don't care what anybody thinks. Maybe they won't like me. Who cares? Like, and, you know, I mean, I have been through, you know, feeling isolated, having no support system and whatnot. But I've come to see that the world is a support system. Like, if they're trying to, I don't know, even though, you know, it's a struggle to be yourself, to really be an individual in this world, to not conform. They aren't nurturing the way the self is, and the way you know, the gods within us are. So, and yeah, I guess that's how I would put it. It's not eloquent, but that's just kind of what I've.
Could you just describe, let's say, do you have, let me just tell you my own.
Yeah.
I would say that the lack I have has always started out as not feeling comfortable in my own skin,
Mhm.
of a just very disconnected from other people,
Yeah.
and on
Yeah,
the
I've often
fact that,
felt that way.
yeah,
Yeah, I've
and
often felt that way myself.
so I mean that was where I came at this stuff from originally, of course, and then I was also lived very tangential to life. You know, I only intersected at like one point. You know, so I was a person with no history, and I was also a person who didn't feel comfortable in their own skin. I was a person who always dreamt, like you did, that I was never needed to touch the earth. In fact, there was one dream where I'm in a spaceship, and where we're weightless. So I just say, well, I don't need my feet, and I cut them off and put them in a cryogenic freezer for later. And the anima says, those aren't so easy to put back on.
That's really interesting what you said about your feet, Craig. I have a bone disease, and I've had a lot of surgeries, and just really have not liked being in my body. And I remember at one point, this is just really messed up, and like I'm ashamed to say it, but I was like, well, I'm gonna have this surgery here, and well, what if it doesn't go good? I'm thinking, and like, well, if I lose my foot, then oh well, you know. And then I did have an experience. That was one surgery, went fine, but I had an experience, I think the same leg, and they really messed it up. And I've just realizing that, like, there's a part of me that's like, how could you, this gift of your body that you have, even though it's so broken in so many ways, like how you took it for granted, and it was a sacred thing. Your body's a sacred thing, as well as, you know, the spirit and everything like that. So I can really relate to that. So that's something that's like been my main thing over the past 3.5 years, is just kind of healing that from that, and just trying to forgive myself. Something else you said I wanted to touch on. Sorry, I'm just having a brain fog sort of day. But yeah, it's been hard for me often to be at home in my own skin, and I've tended to be kind of many times in my life I've kind of been a scapegoat, you know, to different groups, you know, familial group, and whatnot. Which is how I kind of, this all started happening to me, um, getting interested in young after I had some experiences, whatnot. So, but
Well, I would say that I was just going to mention though that I had kind of a that I actually have through I really I won't say I haven't gotten anywhere, but through maybe 20 years of doing dream amplification stuff, I don't ever have dreams like that anymore. I mean, I don't ever have dreams. I mean, every once in a while, I have dreams about floating, and I'll have dreams about absolutely desiccated dogs that have been trapped somewhere for 20 years with no food. You know, I mean, and and how it happened, I don't know, but I mean, it was just basically, I think, is through doing dream work. If you really amplify a dream, there is going to be an aspect of it. Now, I'm just going to tell you how it works because it doesn't really, no big doors open up, but of here I am in heaven. But what happens is you work on that dream, you draw the dream, you amplify the dream, you go out and enact it, and try to do some of the things Adam was talking about, to integrate it into real life. That the Lakota Sioux would get actors to play the different parts of the dream, and they would act it on a play. So they would actually turn it into a play. When you do that, you're never the same afterwards, ever. You have totally transformed, if you want to say that. And it's not what is transformed in you is that the center of gravity of your awareness has moved a little away from this self-willed controlling part to following the serpentine path. Okay. And the dream responds back to you. It's grateful that you did this. And the next dream is going to not be the same dream. It's going to be a dream that responds to the work you did. So the thing is, it's leading somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
So this work is leading somewhere. But I mean, I can say in my own case, I do feel comfortable in my own skin. I don't say that I have a history, anything that anybody want to write a biography about. But I get I think I have a much more feeling related relationship to other people than I did before, even though I'm a little odd, so people don't really say, "Oh, let's have a big long discussion with Craig. What's he going to talk about?" I don't know, dreams or something. But anyway, it has led somewhere. I mean, it does lead somewhere, and where it usually leads is to a healing place. I mean, and I can't say it. All I know is you should have seen me 30 years ago. I mean, I was like a basket case. I mean, I was very many things repressed in me, and I think now I just feel a little more, and also the inner world. And I have kind of a love relationship going on. I don't know, I mean, it's.
Yeah, I've noticed, like, when I do something, maybe a dream is kind of wanting me, or I'll do something in real life and I'll have a dream where my inner world is talking to me, like, gratefully. Like when my anima figure was like, she was like glad I had spoken up for her, and here she was again. And then I'll have things happen synchronistically. Like the next day after that dream was just amazing. And I was just having, it just really makes you think, like, is this real? Like,
It is real.
Am I insane? Like,
No.
am I really seeing what I'm seeing? Like, because, or like, how is this imagery happening here when I did this, like, and I saw this, and then I see three doves and a white dove sitting right above them, and then like with so many other, like it's like you're like, you can't tell people this stuff, and they're like, okay, yeah.
Well, it has nothing to do with them anyway. It
I
has
know, but
something to
like
do with
it
you.
almost seems,
You
it
know.
just seems like, what are the chances that I would see this,
Well,
and
yeah.
that?
I mean, does that wake you up?
Yeah, it's like it just grips you, and
Well,
it's
yeah.
like, it reminds me of that fear of God saying,
Yeah.
like,
Do
you're
we
in
have
awe.
to? I mean, the psyche's
Yeah,
saying, "What do I have to do? Do I have to hit you on the head with a sledgehammer?"
exactly.
I mean, the
And
whole
I
idea
think,
is you know, say they told me we're trying to stir you in every way that we can stir you.
yes,
Wake up,
definitely.
wake up,
Yeah, and I
pay
think, and
attention to us. I mean,
when,
that's actually what they said to me,
oh, for
literally.
sure. Yeah.
And are you going to just say, "Oh, what?
Well, I
I wasn't
can't,
listening"?
I mean, like, I don't know. Andrew Weil said something. I think it was on the Joe Rogan Experience, and he was saying something, and Joe Rogan thought it was really far out, and he was like, "Well, isn't it funner just to live like this anyway?" And you see the guy. I don't know how old he is, but he's pretty old. Like, he's so full of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's isn't that what life is? Like, if it makes you alive, and I mean, it generally feels real. Like, I don't know how. I mean, I don't know what different dimensions are going. I sometimes wonder, okay, is the self in me able to see into the future and make these things happen? Like, for instance, I don't know, 137 is a number that's happened to me, just seemed to show up at my life at certain times synchronistically. And so I picked up my girlfriend. I hadn't seen her almost 3 years at the airport. We decided to, get back together. And so I go and I pick her up, and then, I got to get gasoline. And I forget to get gasoline when we stop to get food. And going down the highway, I'm out in the middle of nowhere on Route 95 North, run out of gas. I have to wait an hour for a tow truck to come by and get me gas. And we finally, I'm driving down the highway, I have to pull over and take a nap because it's so late. Finally pull into my driveway at 1:37 a.m. And I don't know if you're into numerology or anything at all, but I'm like, I'm seriously pulling into my driveway at 1:37 a.m. Like, I feel like I've kind of, I've been trying to follow the dictates of the spirit within me. And it's almost like, yeah, like, like you're on the right path. Like you're, so like even
I
the
did.
things that
I
you've
did.
done that you've gotten something from them, like maybe this wasn't you weren't supposed to stay there, but you had to go to this church to realize these different things about yourself. You had to learn this lesson that, what, it's all in you. You can go there and you can see, okay, they're not all bad. They're good, but they don't know any more than you do. In fact, they know much less about how to live your life than you do. So don't be concerned about the people outside, so much. And it just keeps giving me, it keeps grabbing me and being like, yeah, you're, when I need it, it shows me, you're going in the right direction. If I am, so.
Well, that was Wolfgang Pauli's number, 137.
Yeah.
He saw it everywhere in all his
What's
dreams.
crazy is I think you were talking about it, or who was it? Speaking of Young, forgot her name, but she's got a thing called, there's a podcast called Speaking of Young, and they ended up talking about 137, and my weight's been up and down a lot just for my health issues. And she was talking about it, and things were just like popping in my head, and it just felt like I was being grabbed. And I was like, well, I wonder how much I weigh today. Even weighed 137 pounds. I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's just bizarre.
I used to do it with 316, and my first apartment was 3rd Avenue and 16th Street, but it doesn't appear as much now as the more I do this. I think that once it's a number that's trying to wake you up.
Yes.
By the way, when Wolfgang Pauli had cancer, was taken to the hospital, the room number of the room he died in was 137.
Yes. Isn't it? It's just wild.
Anybody else have any closing comments? Achilles or Carlos or Dawn or Gary or Kevin? Any closing comments? Or Adam?
I put a question in the chat.
Yeah, okay. All right, let me look and see if I can find it here. Okay, oh, here it is. Okay, I gotta get my glasses. Okay. I heard Kevin explain, if I understand correctly, that the inferior functions involve intuition and sensation, feeling, and thinking. First questions, as I can't remember, do these inferior functions go to the anima animus? And if so, reach wholeness? Do introvert, extrovert, perceiving, judging, do they have to be incorporated also? I ask because in my case, those seem to be or more alien than the other functions. I'm hoping you have hear your answer. The ones that are incorporating. I thought Kevin said the IE and the PJ were not inferior function. Well, yeah, the introvert extrovert means, do you gain energy from the outer world? If you gain energy from the outer world and lose energy when you're alone, then you're an extrovert. If you lose energy when you're with a lot of people, but you regain you charge up your batteries when you're by yourself, then you're an introvert. So do you look inward for meaning or outward for meaning? That's introvert and extrovert. And it doesn't really have that much to do with the four functions. I mean, you can be an introverted sensate or an extroverted sensate, you know, and they're very different. But then the P and the J were added by Myers-Briggs to tell us what our extroverted function was. So if you are a introvert, your dominant function is introversion. Introverted also. So I'm an introverted intuitive, and my secondary function is thinking. So my extroverted function is thinking. My introverted function is intuition. So the I would be an INTJ because the J means the judging function, the ones that are more accessible to consciousness. Intuition and sensation just happen to us. They're not accessible. Did you have any thing you wanted to add to that, Kevin? And then we better go.
Yeah, I think she said about the anima.
Oh yeah, they're not.
Because yeah, they are. JMP is just designation and how to type code people. I can say cognitive function. Some say there's the divine attribute, some say it's the human attribute. Cognitive function, as far as I would say, Jung put it as biological function. So I would say that human attribute. I think what is not human attribute is the externalization and internalization of energy, which we seem to possess. Humans seem to possess to externalize and internalize energy. This I cannot say is a human function. This is a function that lies within everything, within molecule, atom, and all of this. Because by the end of it, there are, I think, personally, this is not in books, logos and eros. Thank you.
Well, and yeah, I forgot about the anima animus. Now, I would say that the inferior function, my inferior function is sensation. So that's the one I'm most unconscious of. That's the one I absolutely not available to consciousness. So it's also the one where the inner images can come up most easily because there's no light of ego distorting it. So it can come up. I'm also, am a just biologically male, unfortunately. And so I'm more unconscious of the anima. So that's also not stained by my ego, light of my ego. So things can seep up through the anima too. So if you are someone who's more unconscious of your anima side, then that's where the non-ego within us can speak to us. So it can speak to us through in my case, the sensate function and the anima function. In your case, I'm not sure. Might be if you're a feeling type, it would speak to you through the thinking function and through the animus, the unconscious. So it's really how it speaks to us. And I had always thought that the anima would also be extroverted too, since I'm introverted. But we'll get into that maybe in the dream sessions. And I would like, Dawn, too, if you have any more questions, we can talk about it then. But next time, we'll just start out with the Black Book, and we'll do maybe a couple more on that, and then we'll go to like one period a month. We'll pick another book that people want to look at, and maybe we can start with The Secret of the Golden Flower, so which was the one that got Jung out of the Black Books. Well, what is it about this that you didn't like the Black Books anymore? We'll find that out. So anyway, thank you for everybody, and we'll see you next week. Okay, bye-bye. Thanks.